Hey, what is yoing guys? My name's Grunt Cooker, and today I'm going to be cooking you a tip video. And this video is 5 tips on Smite about how to become a better player. These tips will help you as a beginner, as an average player. You know, you could do better, but you ain't the worst. And for the pros, it will most likely be kind of just a refresher if you're just going back and looking over things. It's just kind of refresh your memory of important things you need to know that can help you become better. So without further ado, let's get on to the video. Tip 1. The first tip we're going to talk about here in this video is knowing your god/goddess. We're going to talk about knowing your god's abilities, know when to pick a fight, and know your god's strengths and weaknesses. When we talk about knowing your god's abilities, we're really focusing on what your god will do for a team. As you can see, Ra, one of the very basic characters in Smite, is considered a ranged magical mage. This becomes more apparent in the role that he plays, and we'll talk about that more later in this video. You can see each god will have their own pros and their difficulty to play them. So make sure you look out for that when picking your god. In Smite, each god has their own unique 4 abilities. 3 basic, 1 alt, and they come with a passive ability. Using Ra as an example here, we can see that his movement speed is increased every time he uses an ability. Knowing the god's passive ability and abilities allows you to fully maximize your god in a fight. Using the ability screen for Ra, we can see that Ancestral Beam is an ability that affects enemies in a line. It shows the damage, the cost of the beam, and its cooldown without any cooldown items. Solar Blessings is a bit different from Ancestral's Beam. It's a ground target, which means you put it down and it stays there, and it affects enemies and allies. We can see that it's a radius of 20, a damage per tick as you upgrade the ability, health per tick to your allies every time you upgrade the ability, its lifetime, its cost, and its cooldown for Solar Blessing. Before ever starting a god, you should go over your abilities for that god. It helps you and your team to know what you have, when you're ready for it, and how much mana you will need for it when the time calls. Tip 2. Here in Tip 2, we're going to be talking all about the role you will play. We're going to go over all the roles you can play as. We're going to explain what each role does. And then you're going to get to know how the strengths and weaknesses of each role affect you and your team during a game. When we talk about roles in Smite, we're primarily talking about the game mode called Conquest. In this game mode, you have 5 unique roles that each player is supposed to do to keep the enemy team from winning. Knowing your mini-map will help you. We're going to talk more about this in a later section of the video, but this is to help you with the lanes. When we look at our mini-map, we want to be certain that we're looking at the right thing and knowing the information that we're gathering from it. As we can see at this map, we are on the blue team because it's at the bottom. Our dual lane is to our left, mid lane is in middle, and solo lanes on right. Knowing the lanes and what team you're on is really important for the different roles you and your teammates will be playing. Let's take a look at the roles and what they would look like on your minimap. Using the blue team's map as reference, let's talk about the 5 different roles you'll see in Conquest. The first role we will be talking about is called ADC, or AD Carry. The common class that will normally play this role is Hunter. They are positioned in the dual lane. Taking a look at the second class we're going to go over is Support. They are located with Hunter in the dual lane at the start of the game, but eventually become in every lane. The common class that will normally play this is Guardian, but Warrior can also pull it off. The third role we're going to be talking about is called Mid. Their lane is a middle lane, And the common class you will see is Mage in the middle lane. The fourth role that we will be looking at is Solo. They are located in the solo lane, and the common class that plays them is Warrior. But you can see Assassins and Mages in that lane. Solo is also considered the easiest role to play as a starter. Last but not least, my personal favorite, the Jungler. The common class that you'll see is Assassins, and the position that they roll is not a lane, but the jungle, the area between the lanes. Knowing your role, what lane your role goes in, and what class normally plays your role can really be the deciding factor in any game. With enough experience, you can see that any class can play any role, such as Guardian can be Jungler. Weird. Now that we have a brief understanding of all of our roles, let's see where all the roles will start out and what buffs they will pick up. Starting at the damage and attack speed buff, you'll normally see that both dual lanes, support and carry, and the mid laner will go to the damage buff. You'll clear this buff out, mid lane will take the damage buff, go to mid lane. The two dual lanes will then proceed to the attack speed, and normally the carry will pick up this buff. But sometimes the support will need the buff to stay in that lane longer than normal. Now that we have looked at the support, carry, and mid roles, let's look at the two remaining left, Solo and Jungle. The Jungler in Solo will go ahead and go to the speed buff. Once killed, the Jungler will take the speed buff and head to the mana buff to help out the Solo. The Solo will gain the mana buff and go ahead to solo lane. At this point, the Jungler has a decision to help a solo lane or go ahead and attack the back Harpy camps. If you're playing Jungler and you're trying to decide where you need to go, whether back camps or stay in solo, the most recommended way to play is stay in solo until the clock hits about 2:45. Then you head to mid Harpies. The key thing you need to take away from tip 2 is knowing your role. Learn where your role goes, learn what buff you need to take, and learn what your teammates are doing. That way you don't get distracted in the middle of a game. Tip 3. In tip 3, we explain about having map awareness. You need to know where your team is, where the enemy team is, and know what camps are up. Let's take a look at a screen that you would normally see in a conquest mode. This is on Xbox One that I captured at one of my newest games that I played. So looking at this screen, we can see a lot of information that you're given when playing in any game. The information we're going to be mainly focusing on is our team, the enemy's team, and our map. So we're going to zoom up on the map here and talk about the different things that you can see just by looking at it. The first thing I recommend when looking at your map is knowing where your team is. As we can see, Cupid and X are in our dual lane, Cuckoo Khan is in our mid lane, Hades and I are in our solo lane. Just a little tip, if you can see X down there in the bottom left of the map on our tier 1 dual lane, you can see he has a yellow glowing effect. This always means that he's recalling back to the home base, right where you guys started. Now that we know where our team is, let's take a look at the enemy team. This is kind of the more advanced things you need to know and kind of understand. Looking at the enemy team, we can see Artemis is in their dual lane, Zeus is in their mid lane, and Hanbats is in their solo. The thing is there's only 3 enemies on the map, but there's 5 gods. So this makes our team worried about the Ares and the Freya, wondering where they're at, where they could be. After knowing where your team is, where the enemy team is, and wondering where the missing gods are, we then begin to look at the camps. If we take a look at the damage buff camp and the attack speed buff camp, we can see that they're both on a cooldown or timer. This timer only activates if your team kills the camp. If an enemy team gets that kill for the camp, they get the timer and you don't get anything. If you take anything away from tip 3, make sure it's knowing how to read your map. This is a key role, and you can really change the tide of the game by reading your map, knowing what teammates need help, what teammates are good, and what camps are up so you always stay ahead of the enemy. Tip 4. Tip 4 is about communication, such as saying what role you want, or when you're about to attack, back out, or even what objectives you want your team to accomplish. When entering a conquest match, you can normally pick your role by hitting the left stick down and calling whatever role you would like. This helps you, your team, to know where you are going to go and what role you will fulfill. Now we can see there are 6 roles here instead of 5 that we went over. The extra role that you can see is fill. Fill is the role of waiting for everybody on your team to pick a role. So let's say your team picked carry, solo, mid, and jungle, and you picked fill. Fill would then go to the support role because that's the only option available. Since we looked at the role we're going to play, we need to communicate to our team what we're going to do, such as attack, what enemies are missing from our lane, and just kind of a general idea of giving good advice to our team. There's 2 ways to doing this. One is by using your mic. Xbox One comes with a default mic. All you have to do is plug it in and just keep it on mute until you need it. Another way is by hitting right on the D-pad on the controller and using this list. This list can really be the deciding factor in any common game. You can tell your team to attack a certain objective, like left lane, right lane, or even Gold Fury. You can tell them to retreat if you feel like they are way too overpressured and they need to back out and wait for the team. Or you can even congratulate them with a nice woohoo! When you use your communication skills very effectively, you'll see your wins go up dramatically. This is because your team knows what you want to do, and you can see what your teammates want you to do in the middle of a fight. Tip 5. Tip 5, last but not least, be nice and have fun. Be friendly to one another. Watch others or even yourself playing Smite. And we've all been new. Watching a pro player of Smite or watching yourself play Smite can really help you determine what you need to focus on and your weaknesses that you really need to work on. When I make my YouTube videos of Smite, in editing I always go over to myself of what I need to work on in the next game. Such as in mid camp, I need to work less on getting ganked and being so pushy. Support, I really need to know when to back out. Support's one of my worst roles, and I've realized that just by watching myself play the game. We've all been new, so let's help out the new people. Let's not make them feel hated by the community. Let's help them out. Let's help them become what we want them to become. So be nice to everybody, whether they're new, whether they're old, whether they're being dicks. Help them out. So that sadly brings a conclusion to my 5 tips on becoming a better Smite player. If you guys learned anything or just liked the video, it took me forever to make this. So please leave a comment of your experiences or tweet me at GruntCooker and just tell me your before and after experiences of your team and communication and having fun. That's the whole fun about video games. Have fun!